The golden hall of the celestial palace shone like a sun inside a mountain. Thousands of alien nobles stood in rows, their crystal armor glowing in many colors. The air smelled like burning metal and strange flowers. Every sound stopped when the alien queen, Lysara of the Nine Suns, walked toward the throne. At the center of the hall stood a human, Ethan Cole. His uniform was torn, his arm wrapped in bandages. He looked small among the tall alien guards, but his eyes stayed calm. He had just saved hundreds of alien lives in the recent disaster on the moon of Threx. Even when fire fell from the sky, he had run into the flames to pull soldiers out. Now, he was being rewarded. Queen Lysara sat on her crystal throne, her silver eyes like cold fire. Her crown looked alive, floating rings of light around her head. Her voice was calm but powerful as she spoke. Ethan Cole of Earth, you have saved my soldiers. You have shown courage even my generals could not. I will give you one gift. You may wish for anything, the crowd whispered. The nobles expected greed. Humans were known for it. Maybe he would ask for gold, a ship, or even a small kingdom. The hall waited. Ethan said nothing. He looked around the throne room. His eyes stopped when he saw a small alien child sitting on the cold floor beside the queen's throne. The child was thin, her silver blue skin covered in dust, her small wrists locked with glowing chains. She looked terrified, eyes full of quiet pain. The queen followed his gaze and said coldly, "That is no concern of yours, human. She is the result of a forbidden birth. She does not belong here." Ethan stepped forward slowly. The guards raised their weapons, but the queen lifted her hand. "Speak your wish, human." He took a deep breath. His voice was quiet, but in the silent hall it echoed like thunder. "I wish for her freedom." For a long moment no one moved. The queen's silver eyes widened slightly. The hall filled with gasps and murmurs. One noble shouted, "He insults the throne." Another said, "A human dares to waste his wish." But Ethan did not look away. His voice stayed calm. "She's just a child. Let her live. That's all I want." The queen stared at him for several seconds. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes softened, only for a moment. She rose from her throne. The air around her shimmered as her crown brightened. "Do you understand what you ask?" she said quietly. "She is not your kind. She carries cursed blood. Freeing her will bring shame upon my name." Ethan met her gaze. "Then let me carry that shame." The queen's voice lowered, almost like a whisper. "You would take punishment for a stranger?" He nodded. "If mercy is a crime, then yes." The queen stood still. Every alien in the room waited for her judgment. Her wings of light slowly folded behind her, and then she spoke, not to her people, but to herself. "Strange. Humans are still full of surprises." She turned to her guards. "Release the child." The guards hesitated. She looked at them sharply. "That is my royal command." They obeyed, unlocking the glowing chains. The child looked confused, then ran toward Ethan. He bent down and smiled softly. "You're free now. Don't be afraid." The queen watched the moment in silence. Her cold mask hid her emotions, but deep inside her heart beat faster. Something she had not felt in centuries, curiosity, maybe even warmth, touched her soul. As Ethan led the child away, the nobles began to whisper again, angry, afraid, and uncertain. The queen returned to her throne, her eyes following the human's fading figure. For the first time, she wondered what kind of man he truly was, and somewhere deep inside her, a strange thought appeared. What if his wish changes more than just a life? The Palace of the Celestials never slept. Its silver walls glowed under the twin moons, and the air carried the hum of energy lines running beneath the floors. Yet that night, Queen Lysara could not rest. She sat alone in her chamber, a vast room of mirrors, firelight, and silence. Her crown lay beside her, glowing faintly. Normally, it floated above her head like a living symbol of power. But tonight, even it seemed to rest, as if sharing her unease. She replayed the moment again and again in her mind. The human's words, his calm face, his strange request. "I wish for her freedom." How could such a simple sentence shake her so deeply? Lysara had seen countless humans, traders, thieves, mercenaries, all greedy, desperate for riches or fame. But this one, He had looked into her eyes with no fear, no desire, just quiet strength. She hated that it lingered in her thoughts. Outside, her servant, a tall alien woman named Sereth, entered quietly. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "the council requests your explanation for today's event." Lysara's eyes flicked up, sharp as blades. "Tell the council I answer to no one." Sereth bowed deeply. "As you command." She hesitated before leaving. "But if I may, Your Majesty, the human's act has inspired whispers among the servants. They say he showed compassion." Lysara frowned. "Compassion?" She rose and walked to the balcony. The night wind brushed her long silver hair, and stars shone like cold fire above the empire she had ruled for centuries. "Compassion is weakness, Sereth, yet it made even me hesitate." "Perhaps that is why it frightens you," Sereth said softly. The queen turned sharply, her wings of light flaring. "Mind your tongue." Sereth bowed again and left in silence. The queen stood there alone, her reflection staring back at her from the glass floor. For the first time, she saw not a ruler, but a woman unsure of her own heart. Meanwhile, in the servants' quarters, Ethan sat by the small alien child's bed. She slept peacefully, her blue skin glowing faintly in the dark. He had learned her name, Arya. She spoke little, but when he gave her food, she smiled for the first time. He didn't understand why the queen allowed it. Maybe she wanted to test him. Maybe she was curious. But Ethan didn't care. The child had no one else. He whispered to himself, "If a wish can free one life, maybe it can change others too." A faint sound came from the doorway. He turned and froze. The queen was standing there. Her silver robes shimmered like starlight. Without her crown, she looked almost human. Her eyes studied him, unreadable. "You could have asked for anything," she said quietly. "Power, wealth, even a ship to return home. Yet you asked for that child. Why?" Ethan stood slowly. "Because she needed it. That's all?" He nodded. "Where I come from, we don't walk away from someone who's hurting." The queen tilted her head slightly as if testing his words. "You think your kindness changes anything? My people will not see it as noble. They will call it weakness." "Then maybe they've forgotten what strength really means," he said simply. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Only Arya's quiet breathing could be heard. The queen looked at the sleeping child, then at Ethan again. Her lips parted as if to say something, but she stopped. Finally she whispered, "Humans, always so strange." Then she turned and walked away. Ethan watched her go, sensing that behind her calm mask was a storm. Later that night, in her private garden, Lysara stood beside the silver lake. The stars shimmered on the surface, and her reflection looked tired. Her thoughts whispered like voices in the water. "He defied me, yet I didn't punish him. He spoke to me, and I listened. Why?" She closed her eyes. For the first time in her long reign, she didn't feel like a queen. She felt like a woman who couldn't stop thinking about a human's choice. And somewhere, deep inside her chest, her heart, long frozen by centuries of rule, beat just a little faster. Days passed in the celestial palace, but the air never felt calm again. The story of the human and his strange wish had spread like fire. Everywhere Ethan walked, eyes followed him, some full of wonder, most full of hate. The nobles whispered that the queen had gone soft. The council said the human had cursed the balance of power. Even the guards, once respectful, now looked at him with silent anger, but Ethan didn't care. All he cared about was Arya, the little alien girl he had freed. He spent his days teaching her simple earth words, making her laugh, helping her draw with broken chalk on the cold marble floor. In those small moments, the palace didn't feel like a cage. It felt human. In the Queen's council chamber, tension hung like smoke. 12 high nobles sat in a half-circle, their golden armor reflecting the pale blue fire that floated above them. At the center, Queen Lysara listened in silence as the council spoke. "The human is a threat," hissed Lord Velcor, the oldest among them. "He weakens your rule, my queen. Our soldiers speak his name with respect and doubt. A ruler cannot afford either." Another counselor added, "Let him be sent back to Earth. Or better, to the mines of Gorth, where he'll never speak again." Lysara's silver eyes were cold. "He saved your sons on Threx," she said softly. "Would you reward that with chains?" Velkor bowed slightly. "He saved them, yes. But now he teaches rebellion. Today a child, tomorrow a people." The queen said nothing for a long moment. Then she rose slowly, her wings of light unfolding. "I will decide what the human deserves." Her voice was sharp as lightning. "Until then, none of you will touch him." The council bowed, but their eyes burned with anger. When they were gone, Lysara stood alone. Her heart warred with her mind. Rulers did not question their choices, yet this human had forced her to. His actions made her remember something she had buried long ago, her own childhood, when she too had been powerless before the throne. That evening, Lysara walked through the lower gardens, something she had not done in centuries. She saw Ethan sitting under a crystal tree, Arya asleep beside him. He looked up and smiled slightly. "Didn't expect to see you here, Your Majesty." Lysara folded her arms. "You have caused chaos in my empire." "I didn't mean to," he said simply. "I just couldn't stand by." The queen stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "Do you know what your wish has cost you, human?" Ethan tilted his head. "Cost me your life," she said coldly. "The council will not stop. You've humiliated them. They will hunt you. They may even come for the child." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then let them come. I've seen worse than their anger." Her voice softened, barely above a whisper. "You cannot fight an empire," he smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but I can fight for one little girl." Something in those words pierced her. Lysara turned away, trying to hide her expression. No one had spoken to her like that in centuries. Without fear, without worship, without care for her title. "Do you truly believe kindness can protect you?" she asked. He looked down at the sleeping child, brushing her hair gently. "It already has." The queen said nothing. For the first time, she didn't know if she was angry or afraid. That night, the queen stood at her balcony again, the cold wind brushing against her face. Below her, the empire stretched to the horizon. Endless lights, endless rule. But for the first time, it all felt hollow. She whispered to herself, "He will die for that child." Then, after a pause, another thought came, quieter, trembling like a secret. "And I don't want him to." The queen closed her eyes. In the darkness, she finally understood the true price of a wish. It wasn't gold or power or rebellion, it was change, and she was already paying it. The days in the Celestial Palace turned tense and quiet. The air itself seemed to watch, heavy with whispers. Wherever Ethan went, eyes followed, not with curiosity now, but with anger. The queen's mercy toward him had spread beyond the palace walls. Soldiers murmured that she was losing control. Nobles said she had been touched by a human curse. Ethan felt it too. The shift in the wind, the weight in every stare. But he didn't leave. He couldn't. Arya, the little alien girl he had freed, needed him. She followed him everywhere, her small hand gripping his sleeve. She trusted him more than anyone else in that cold, glittering palace. At night, when she fell asleep, Ethan often looked at the stars outside her window. He didn't know why the queen had allowed this. Maybe she was testing him. Maybe she just didn't care. But deep down, he felt she did, even if she tried to hide it. In the upper chambers, Queen Lysara sat with her council again. Their faces were hard, their voices sharp. "The servants whisper that you've changed, my queen," said Lord Velkor. "They say you walk the lower gardens now, that you speak with the human, that you protect the child." Lysara's silver eyes flashed. "I rule this empire as I wish." Velkor didn't flinch. "And if the people lose faith in your strength? If your mercy becomes their weapon?" Another noble hissed, "A queen who bends for a human will not rule long." Lysara rose from her throne. Her voice thundered, "Enough." The room trembled as her light flared. "You forget who built this empire. My word is law." But when the council left, her heart didn't feel like steel, it felt heavy. Every act of defiance for Ethan made her throne colder beneath her. That night, while the queen battled her thoughts, danger crept through the palace. A group of masked nobles moved like shadows through the servants' corridors. They had one goal, to take the child. Arya woke to the sound of the door sliding open. Strange hands reached for her. She screamed a sharp, frightened cry. Ethan rushed from the next room, grabbing a metal rod from the wall. "Let her go," he shouted. The attackers turned on him, weapons drawn. He swung, blocking one strike, ducking another. But there were too many. A blade cut across his arm. He staggered back, protecting Arya with his body. Then, the air changed. A golden light filled the hallway. Queen Lysara appeared. Her crown burned brighter than the sun's. Her voice echoed like thunder. "How dare you touch what I have spared?" The masked nobles froze. One tried to speak. "Your Majesty, we only—" Her eyes flashed, and he fell to his knees, gasping as if air itself had turned against him. The others dropped their weapons and fled. When the hall fell silent again, the Queen looked at Ethan. His arm bled, his breath uneven, but his hand still shielded the child. "You risked your life again," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Someone had to." The Queen's gaze softened. Slowly she knelt beside Arya and touched her cheek gently. "You are safe now, little one," Arya whispered, trembling. "Mama." The Queen froze. For a heartbeat, she looked like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Her eyes met Ethan's, shocked, exposed. Then she stood quickly, hiding the flicker of emotion behind her cold mask. "Take her to the healer," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. Later, as the palace slept, Lysara stood alone in the garden. The stars reflected in her eyes, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a ruler of worlds. She felt human. Ethan's words from before echoed in her mind. "Maybe your heart knows what justice is, even when your crown doesn't." She whispered to herself, "Why do his words feel heavier than my laws?" Behind her, in the silence of the palace, a new rumor began to spread. The Queen had bled for a human's cause, and that rumor would start something no empire could stop. The next sunrise brought no peace. The palace, once proud and shining, now stood under a cloud of fear. The nobles' whispers had turned into open defiance. Servants no longer bowed when the Queen passed. They stared in silence, uncertain if their ruler was still the same unbreakable Lysara of old. Rumors grew like vines across the empire. The Queen protects a human. The Queen hides a child. The Queen is no longer pure. By nightfall, the Council of 12 gathered again, but this time without her permission. They met in the shadows of the great temple, plotting to remove her from power. Lord Velcor spoke, his voice filled with venom. "She betrayed her own blood. She has chosen a human over her people. It is time the throne found a ruler loyal to the empire." One by one, they nodded. The plan was simple. When the Queen appeared in the next ceremony, they would announce her betrayal and demand her removal. The guards loyal to them would strike. But none of them knew that a young servant overheard their words. And that servant ran straight to Ethan. Ethan listened, his face hard. "They're going to overthrow her?" The servant nodded, shaking. "Tonight, during the moonfall ceremony, they'll accuse her in front of everyone. They'll kill you and the child first, to break her." Ethan's heart pounded. "Where's Arya?" "She's with the Queen," the servant whispered. In her private chamber. Ethan didn't wait another second. He ran through the shining halls, ignoring the pain in his healing arm. The grand corridors echoed with alarm bells as soldiers moved into secret positions. In the throne room, Queen Lysara stood alone with Arya, brushing the child's silvery hair. For a brief moment her face softened. "You shouldn't be here, little one. The world outside this room would not understand you." Arya looked up, her bright eyes full of trust. "You're not angry anymore, Mama?" The word Mama hit Lysara's heart like lightning. She froze, the truth she had hidden for years now spoken aloud. Before she could answer, the doors burst open. Ethan rushed in, out of breath. "They're coming for you. The council tonight." The Queen turned sharply, her light flaring. "What do you mean?" "They plan to accuse you and kill us all," he said. Before she could respond, the sound of marching boots echoed through the hall. The doors opened again, and Lord Velcor entered with armed guards. "Lysara of the Nine Sons," he declared, his voice booming, "you stand accused of betraying your empire. protecting a human enemy and harboring a forbidden child. Surrender your crown. The queen's silver eyes burned like stars. You dare speak treason in my hall? Velkor sneered. Your reign ends tonight. He raised his hand. Take the human. The guards charged. Ethan pushed Arya behind him, drawing a fallen guard's blade. The clash of steel echoed through the hall. He fought fiercely, blocking, striking, dodging. Lysara joined the fight, her crown flaring into a storm of light. She moved like a goddess of war, her wings slicing through the air. Every strike of her hand sent guards flying. But there were too many. As Ethan fought beside her, Velkor's cruel laughter echoed. You fight for a child that should not exist, he shouted. The queen stopped, eyes narrowing. And yet she lives because of him. The hall went silent. Every soldier froze. Velkor frowned. What are you saying? Lysara stepped forward, voice trembling but proud. The child you call forbidden. She is my daughter. Gasps filled the hall. She was hidden because your council feared her blood, half mine, half from a race you called impure. And this human, she pointed toward Ethan, did what none of you ever did. He saw her as a person, Velkor's face twisted with rage. Then you have truly fallen. He raised his weapon, but before he could strike, Ethan lunged forward, blocking the blow. The queen turned, light bursting around her. With one sweep of her hand, Velkor was thrown across the room, his weapon shattering. The soldiers hesitated, unsure now who was right, who was wrong. Lysara stood tall, her voice echoing across the hall. If saving a child is betrayal, then let the galaxy know I am guilty. Her crown blazed like a sun. Ethan stood beside her, breath heavy, his eyes meeting hers. And in that moment, the empire began to crumble, not from war, but from truth. The palace burned. Smoke rolled through the grand halls, and the air trembled with the roar of battle. Red alarms flashed across the crystal ceilings. The once glorious empire of the Celestials was now a battlefield of fire and betrayal. Queen Lysara stood in the throne room, her crown cracked, her silver armor dimmed by soot. Around her, loyal guards fought desperately to hold the doors. Ethan stood at her side, blood on his cheek, clutching a plasma blade taken from a fallen soldier. Outside, the rebels, led by Lord Velkor, surrounded the palace. Thousands chanted her name not with respect but with fury. The traitor queen must fall. Inside, Arya clung to Ethan's arm, terrified. Why are they angry? She whispered. He knelt beside her, trying to hide the fear in his eyes. Because they don't understand kindness yet, he said softly. But they will, the queen heard his words. For a second, her chest tightened. That human had turned her empire upside down, and still, he didn't hate her for it. She turned to him. You should run. There's a secret gate behind the throne. Take the child and leave. Ethan shook his head. I'm not leaving you here. This is not your war, she said firmly. You've done enough. He met her gaze, steady, unbroken. Maybe it became my war the moment I made that wish. For a moment, silence hung between them. Soft, heavy, alive. Then the doors exploded. A flood of rebels stormed in. Velkor walked at the front, his golden armor shining through the smoke. End this, Lysara, he shouted. You've broken every law we swore to protect. The queen raised her chin proudly. Then your laws were wrong. Velkor's voice turned cruel. Your crown dies tonight. He pointed his sword at Ethan. And the human dies with you. The battle began. Ethan leaped forward, blocking the first strike aimed at Arya. Sparks flew as steel met steel. Around them, loyal guards fought against the tide, but one by one they fell. Lysara unleashed her power, her wings of light spread wide, cutting through the smoke. Beams of energy erupted from her palms, striking enemies down. But the strain showed. Her breaths came shorter, her glow flickering. Ethan saw her stumble and ran to her side, deflecting another blow meant for her heart. Stay down, he shouted. She glared at him through the chaos. You dare order your queen? He grinned, blood running from his lip. Someone has to keep you alive. Even in that terrible moment, she almost smiled. They fought back to back, human and alien, side by side, their movements rough but perfectly in sync. Each time Lysara faltered, Ethan's hand steadied her. Each time he was cornered, her power shielded him, but the enemy kept coming. Dozens turned into hundreds. The throne room shook under the weight of their fury. Then Velkor shouted, "Bring the cannons!" The wall behind them exploded. A blinding beam tore through the air, straight toward the queen. Ethan saw it first. There was no time to think. He threw himself between her and the blast. The world turned white. When the light faded, the hall was silent. Ethan lay on the ground, smoke rising from his armor, blood spreading beneath him. The queen dropped to her knees beside him. "Ethan!" she cried, her voice breaking for the first time in centuries. She pressed her glowing hand against his chest, trying to heal him, but the wound was too deep. His eyes fluttered open. "Told you, I wouldn't leave." Tears burned her eyes. "Foolish human. You should have saved yourself," he smiled weakly. "You said I could wish for anything, remember?" She nodded, trembling. He whispered, "Then I wish for your people to be free." Her breath caught. "You..." Before she could finish, his eyes closed. The queen froze. Around her, the rebels hesitated. The sight of their glowing queen kneeling before a dying human shook even their hate. Then Lysara rose. Her wings unfolded, brighter than ever before. The ground trembled as her voice echoed through the halls. "You call me traitor," she shouted, "but this human showed me truth, that mercy is not weakness, that compassion is not betrayal." She raised her hand, and the light around her flared like a sun. "If he dies, let it be known, a single human saved what your pride destroyed." The rebels fell silent. Even Velkor lowered his blade. As the fires dimmed and the echoes faded, the queen sank beside Ethan once more, her crown flickering like a dying star. She touched his face gently. "You wouldn't bow, even before death." And for the first time, Queen Lysara, ruler of the 9 suns, bowed her head instead. The throne room was silent. Only the crackling of distant fires broke the still air. The once mighty banners of the Celestial Empire now hung torn and blackened. Amid the smoke and ruin, Queen Lysara knelt on the marble floor, cradling Ethan's still body in her arms. His eyes were closed, his chest unmoving, his skin pale beneath the silver light that fell from the shattered ceiling. The queen's silver hair fell over her face as she whispered his name again and again, as if sound alone could pull him back. "Ethan, open your eyes. You cannot end here. Not like this." There was no answer. Her soldiers, what few remained, stood at a distance, silent and shaken. None dared approach their queen. The human who had once been mocked and hated had now become something no one could name. Lysara's fingers trembled as she touched his face. "You foolish, brave creature," she whispered. "You came from a broken world and taught mine to feel again." Her tears glowed faintly, silver drops that fell on his armor. The mark of her crown dimmed, flickering like a fading star. Outside, the rebellion fell apart. Without Velkor's voice and the queen's rage, the soldiers stopped fighting. The sound of war faded into the sound of confusion and quiet grief. When Lysara finally stood, she carried Ethan's body herself. No one dared stop her. Step by step, she walked through the ruined halls, through the burning gates, out into the dawn. The sun rose over the horizon, red, warm, gentle. Its light fell upon her and the man in her arms. The people of the city fell silent as their queen passed. Even the wind seemed to bow. At the center of the palace gardens, Lysara laid Ethan down beneath the silver tree, the one where he used to sit with Arya and tell her stories of Earth. She placed her crown beside him. It glowed softly for a moment, then broke apart into dust, its light scattering into the wind. A soft voice came behind her. "Mother?" It was Arya, trembling, her small hands clutching her torn dress. Lysara turned, eyes wet. She knelt and pulled the child into her arms. "Do not cry," she whispered. "He is not gone. He lives in what he changed." Arya looked up, tears glimmering. "He said we'd be free." The queen smiled weakly. "And now we will be." Years passed, the palace was rebuilt, but not in the old image. The thrones of gold were gone, replaced with open halls where all species, alien and human alike, could stand together. The empire became a union. At the heart of the capital stood a great garden. In its center stood a statue, a human man kneeling, holding out his hand to a small alien child. The inscription at the base read, "One wish changed an empire. The queen no longer ruled as a monarch. She guided her people as a leader among equals, her silver crown now worn only in ceremony. A memory, not a command." Arya grew into a young woman, wise beyond her years. The people called her the Empress of Dawn, for she carried the warmth of both her mother's strength and the human's heart. Every year, on the anniversary of the battle, she placed a single white flower at the foot of Ethan's statue and whispered the same words her mother once said. "Thank you for teaching us to be kind." In her final years, Queen Lizara often visited the garden at sunset. She would sit under the silver tree and look up at the stars, the same stars Ethan once watched. Sometimes, when the wind blew softly, she could almost hear his voice again. Calm, gentle, steady. "If kindness has a price, I'll pay it." She would close her eyes and smile, and when she finally left this world, the people said the stars shone brighter that night, as if the universe itself remembered the human who made a wish not for himself, but for everyone. The end.